Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this program Islamic Awakening, presented by MBTV, and this episode of this program is being hosted by we have a very special distinguished alim scholar here, Mufti Jakura from South Africa. So welcome to Maldives again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
In the previous episode we were talking about Islamic economics and how the solutions can be brought from Islamic economics to the world crisis and all that. So what is the fundamental verse in the Quran with regard to Islamic economics?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned one particular verse in the Holy Quran in which He addresses the believers, and He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, la ta'kulu amwalakum baynakum bil batil, illa an takuna tijaratan an taradim minkum. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the believers and He says that, O believers, la ta'kulu amwalakum baynakum bil batil. Do not consume each other's wealth unjustly.
Unjustly.
Illa an takuna tijaratan an taradim minkum. Except if it is done by mutual trade, and that also should be by mutual agreement between the parties. So the fuqaha have written, the mufassirin have stated that this particular verse of the Holy Quran is probably the fundamental verse which outlines all the rules, or most of the rules of Islamic commercial activity. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that la ta'kulu amwalakum baynakum bil batil, that do not consume wealth unjustly. It means stealing is not permissible, it means deception is not permissible, it means gambling is not permissible because it is unjust consumption of wealth. It means that any transaction in which there is something called gharar, uncertainty of outcome, if there is uncertainty of outcome in a bilateral commercial transaction,
that's also unjust.
Such consumption of wealth is regarded as unjust and impermissible. It means that if there is a transaction in which there is interest or riba, usually such a transaction is also haram, impermissible. In fact, if just on this whole aspect of riba, I think it's very important for the viewers to understand that it is such a dangerous crime and sin, taking and giving interest, that for no other crime has such a severe punishment been sounded in the Holy Quran.
Declare
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذْ لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. That if you do not take heed, you do not stop taking interest and giving interest, then take heed of a war, a battle with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So can a person like that ever be successful if he is at war with Allah and His Rasul? So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited, unjust consumption of wealth. But what has been allowed in the verse is إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ تِجَارَةً عَن تَرَاضٍ مِّنْكُمْ. If there is trade, if there is commercial activity that happens, and it is with mutual consent, and it is normally you are selling goods, you are selling services which are of a permissible nature, goods which are of a permissible nature, then or engaging in any other commercial activity that is recognized by the Sharia, then that is fine, that is permissible, you are allowed to earn through that.
So those are the standards that govern the Islamic financial institutions. So can we go on to some of the Islamic financial products as such?
Those are just with regards to that, that is the very principled verse of the Quran. And of course thereafter there are explanations of how Muslims should conduct the commercial activity, the economic activity, how it should be conducted. There are guidelines in the Sharia. Now what was happening was, with the coming of Islamic finance, what started happening was that because we discussed in the first episode as well that there is a difference of opinion sometimes in certain things. The Shafi school had a different opinion, the Hanafi school may have had a different opinion, the Hanbali school may have had a different opinion, and the Maliki school may have had a different opinion. And all of these opinions, كلهم على الحق والهدى, they all are correct, they all have applied their mind, they all have extracted rulings from the Quran and Hadith based on their own principles. So fine, but there was a need, because now trade started happening, Islamic finance started spreading throughout the world. Now there were Shafis that were dealing with Hanafis and so forth. So there was a need to harmonize these. So there is an organization in Bahrain called IOFI. It stands for the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions.
So they are harmonizing.
This organization comprises of scholars, ulama from different parts of the world, following different mazahib, different schools of thought. And they sit down and they have created up till now in excess of 40 standards on different products.
On financial dealings.
Yes. And they've standardized a lot of the rulings. So many countries around the world are now, like in Pakistan, Islamic financial institutions are obliged to follow IOFI standards, to the best of my knowledge. This is what I've heard. Similarly, in other countries like Bahrain, in some of the Middle Eastern countries, these countries are required to follow IOFI standards. So they've come out with two sets of standards. One is Sharia standards, and they've come out with accounting and governance standards. So it's two thick, nice.
The Sharia standards are from the IFSB. Islamic Financial Services Board?
No, that is different. This group of scholars have sat down and they have a process on how to approve it, these standards, and they go through, the whole process is a very vigorous process to create and prepare one set of standards. And up till now, in excess of 40 standards, to the best of my knowledge, have been prepared. And the work is going on. So, regulatory authorities around the world
have to follow this.
They don't have to follow it, but it's made their task very, very simple. That they don't have to take out, special laws now. They can just
comply.
They can just say that Islamic financial institutions have to comply with IOFI standards. So once they do that, then it's a great stride in the right direction.
With regard to insurance, I mean, what makes insurance impermissible? Sometimes, the conventional insurance versus Islamic insurance we have, maybe the audience may not be very clear about the distinction, for example. I know this is a very huge area, but what is the element there?
There are a lot of misconceptions with regards to insurance. We get a lot of questions with regards to insurance. Many people ask us, is life insurance permissible? So they feel that life insurance is not permissible and general insurance may be permissible. So this itself is a great misconception. We have to understand what is insurance. Insurance is basically risk mitigation. You're trying to protect yourself from potential loss. So this principle as a foundation, protecting yourself from potential loss, or risk mitigation, spreading your risk
by everybody joining in,
by everyone joining in, or in any way. This as a principle, this is something that is not frowned upon in the Sharia. In fact, the Sharia would encourage you that if there is a potential danger, then you protect yourself from that.
So we can join hands to really help people and to protect people.
That's right. So if there is a potential loss, or a person has got risk, he's at risk of some calamity befalling him, and if he is able to mitigate that risk, then why not?
Exactly.
So he should be able to do it. But the problem that comes about is that how do you go about doing that? The very same thing happens in Islamic finance. That to acquire finance from someone is not haram and not impermissible in itself. To acquire finance from someone may very well be permissible. But it is how you go about doing it that makes it permissible or not permissible. When it comes to insurance, exactly the same thing.
How to mitigate the risk? How
do you mitigate that risk? How you go about doing it, that makes all the difference between halal
So we are
and
now
haram.
entering into the real world of Islamic finance and takaful. So after a short break, we will go on with this topic, inshallah. Thank you very much, and we'll see you after a short break. Assalamu alaikum.